Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of IntimaSEE. I'm your host, Austin Vangelina, and your co-host, Lizzie Ames.
Hi.
And today's guest is a very honorable guest. We are very humbled and honored to have him join and be a part of this episode today. Rabbi Manis Friedman, author, religious leader, and he's going to go over today what are the rules in love, in marriages, and in general. Also going into the topics of spirituality and how we live our everyday life. So welcome, Rabbi Manis Friedman.
Thank you so much. The rules of love and war, I guess, right?
Yes.
Of all sorts of engagements. The rules of engagement. Okay, so let's get right to the point. Let's go for the most shocking of ideas. The number one thing that we have to correct in our lives today is love. Love has become a disaster. Love is destroying marriages and friendships and relationships. It's the monster. Love has become an idol that we worship. Everything is about love. All you really need is love. Love will keep us together. No matter how violent the community becomes, we talk about, hey, let's just love each other. This is so unhealthy and so unnatural. What exactly is love? Where does it belong? When does it come into your life? What does it have to do with marriage? So let's get it straight. Love and marriage do not go together like a horse and carriage. I'm not even sure what that means, but it's not true.
So there's not a coupling of the two.
Huh?
So there's not a coupling of the two.
No, there's not.
You know what I mean?
So it's not a lock and key method.
What? It's not like if you love someone, you have to marry them.
Okay, there it is.
And if you marry somebody, you're going to love them? What's the connection? In fact, this couple came to me and said, we are very much in love and we want to get married. Would you do the wedding for us? I said, you love each other? They said, yes. I said, well, then it's too late. Then why would you get married?
So it's already happened. You've already done the first part. That's it.
You're getting married for love, which you already have. So enjoy it. What are you getting married for? The guy said, well, we want to make a commitment. Is that a commitment to what? To stay married if you don't love each other? You have no intentions of doing that. So what do you do?
Because the commitment's already there. So what is a piece of paper going to do? Is that what am I understanding that correctly?
The commitment to what? You're promising to love each other? You can't make such a promise.
I see.
So you're promising that you'll stay married even if you don't love each other? No, you're not.
What is your advice to here's the thing. One of the things that I hear a lot in this day and age, people are afraid of commitment. They're afraid of that. What is your advice to people that they have this concern around commitment? They have concerns around dating, finding a partnership. What can you tell us on your thoughts on that?
I think the problem is not so much fear of commitment, but we don't see any justification for it. We're not raised with that kind of mentality. We do what we want, we do what we like, we do what feels good. Now all of a sudden, make a commitment. Why? What for? What's good about it? It's a foreign concept. We don't make any commitments because we don't believe in commitments. We believe in doing what comes natural, what feels good. So you ask any couple, if you stopped loving each other, would you stay married? And they look at you like, what a ridiculous question. Of course not.
Yeah. The thing that I find most fascinating about that is that so often I feel like in, at least in the Western societies, there is this pressure or there's this love economy, the wedding industry, the dating industry, how many billions of dollars people spend on dating apps to find the one, to find someone to love, to find someone to commit to. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, let's get to understand. If love and marriage don't go together, why do we marry? No one has asked that question for at least a couple of centuries. We just take marriage
Until now.
Yeah. Oh, you're in your 20s. Are you getting married? Why would I get married? Everybody gets married. Is that the reason? That's all you can say about the subject? So let's back up. When you were 9 years old, you wanted to be married. You wanted to be a mommy.
Or a daddy, or whatever.
You just didn't like boys. So marriage comes before love. You didn't love anyone, but you wanted to be married and be a mommy. Now, what happened to that? All of a sudden, now you're looking for someone to love. You're not so sure about marriage.
Mm.
So let's re-examine. What in the world is marriage? Who invented it? Who needs it? And what is it good for?
Okay.
Okay, so the first fact is marriage was invented by God. No human being would ever come up with an idea like that.
It's true.
Personal liberty forever. It's like the human spirit right there.
And even
Yeah.
even the marriage between a man and a woman, what a crazy idea is that? Why do you want to marry cross-gender? Marry the familiar gender. Men stick with men, women stick with women. That makes more sense. So nothing about marriage makes any kind of sense. It's God's idea. First commandment in the Bible. Therefore should a man leave his mother and father, cleave to his wife, and become one flesh. So briefly, it turns out to be this. Human beings were never meant to be only male or only female. Not because we're non-binary, but because we're bi-binary, whatever that means. We are meant to be both male and female. The fact that male and female are separated into separate beings is not a healthy condition. To heal that condition, you get married and become one again. So
I understand.
the objective of marriage is to become one. Male and female are two parts of a human being. To be a complete human being, you have to be both. How do we now become both? By bonding and becoming one in a marriage. So if you're male, you need your female other half. And if you're female, you need your male other half. That's what we call soulmate.
Because it's reflecting the soul, which is embodying already both.
The soul was once male and female.
Mm.
It got divided at birth, and now you have to find each other again. So the definition of marriage, and this is really crucial, marriage is a reunion. It's not a union. It's a reunion. Any two people can create a union. Doesn't make it a marriage. Makes it a roommate, a friendship. What makes a marriage different from any other relationship is that marriage is a reunion. It's magical. How the two parts of the same soul find each other. It's nothing short of miraculous. Because there are 8 billion people out there. How does your soul find the other part of your soul? It's divinely orchestrated.
I have a question, Rabbi.
Yeah.
So so seeing the perspective I'm seeing of the divine orchestration of how does when the soul finds the other soul, right? And there's a reunion because it was at one time, it was oneness, if I'm understanding it correctly, and then coming into form here in the physical plane, we are finding, the soulmates are finding each other.
Right.
But then the flesh, in my viewpoint so far, gets in the way. Our ego becomes our own worst enemy. And then we're, going into, well, I'll just take them or take them or take them or take this. And if I don't like this, I'll go to this. You see what I'm saying? So how do we get out of our own way to just trust the process, so to speak?
Well, the first thing is to focus on its purpose. What is the purpose of getting married? If you're looking for the most gorgeous woman or for the most eligible bachelor, you'll keep looking all your life. Just because you married one doesn't mean you're going to be content. Because your objective is social superiority or love or looks or status. But if a man says to a woman, I want to marry you for your money, is that a good idea? People say the silliest things. Oh, no, because what happens when the money runs out? Is that the problem?
They're not wanting them for the person inside. They're looking at them for the financial assets. And that's a completely different arrangement. Might as well just throw the person away and it's all about the money.
But also wealth, it means many different things. Being wealthy could also being wealthy in spirituality, being wealthy in all aspects of your life.
It's just as bad. It's just as bad.
It's just as bad.
So
what are the rules?
If I say I want to marry you for your money, it is so insulting. I'm literally saying, I don't really want to marry you. I just want the money. So in a perfect world, you would just give me the money and I'll be happy. But this is not a perfect world. So I'm going to have to marry you to get the money. That is so insulting.
That is really insulting.
And it's also not honest. I want to marry you for your money. I don't want to marry you. I want to marry the money. Now, why is love any better? I don't want to marry you. I want your love. The only way I can get your love is by marrying you? Okay, I'll marry you. But I don't really want to be married to you. So what happens? We get married for love. And 2 weeks into the marriage, the husband offers an opinion. And the wife says, Didn't marry you for your opinion, just the love. Let's stick to the love. The woman says, I'm upset, I'm having a bad mood. I didn't marry you for that. Not part of the deal. Just the love, thank you very much. So instead of love being unconditional, love is the biggest of all conditions. Love me, or we have no relationship at all. And that's why if we stop loving each other, what do you mean stay together? There is no together. You were never important to me. The love, and the love went away. So there's nothing left. Here's the killer. One of the things that marriage is supposed to accomplish is that you never feel alone in the world again. Loneliness is killing us. It's like that great song, Piano Man. They're sharing a drink they call loneliness, but it's better than drinking alone. There is loneliness, which is painful, and then there is aloneness, which is devastating. You can share loneliness. You get two lonely people together, they're not lonely for a while, but they're still alone. Marriage is the only cure for that feeling of aloneness, because you're really bonded to each other. And even if you're separated by an ocean, you're not alone. When marriages that are successful, no complaints, the wife has no complaint to the husband has no complaint to the wife. But individually, when you speak to them, they will each tell you, I feel so alone in the world.
Mm.
That means that your marriage has not taken. You're married, but you're not bonded, which means you're married, but you're not intimate.
So you lack that intimacy.
Yes. Marriages have become non-intimate. Marriages today are basically pornography.
It's true.
We objectify each other, we perform sexually, and we're completely alone. It's a disaster.
That is such an interesting insight. You've mentioned in the past, you talk a lot about the sexual revolution and the free love and how that has kind of led to the current circumstances that you described. Can you tell us a little bit about how do people walk out of that? How do we as a society walk away from that and choose intimacy?
Well, in the 60s, men and women agreed that sex should not be so serious, shouldn't be so regulated. It's just good, healthy fun. So free love meant sex without attachment, sex without guilt, sex without commitment, sex without intimacy. And it felt like liberation. It felt like we were really progressing and we're becoming much more sophisticated than our grandparents. But now, all these years later, we're realizing it's a disaster. Like somebody said, safe sex? If it's safe, it's not sex. Sex used to be awesome. Awesome. Unbelievable. You can actually do that? How amazing. It was intimate, it was bonding, it was personal. And so you respected it. You were in awe of it. They stripped it of all of that. And now it becomes a performance. It's impersonal. It doesn't bond you. On the contrary, it keeps you separate. You're never so alone as when you're having sex, because you're so caught up in your own pleasure, nothing else exists for you. So it is so painfully insulting. And when a couple have been together and then he asks her, so how was it? This is the end of civilization. How was it? We did it. That's so pornographic. There was just us. What's the it? And why are you asking me how was it? Weren't you there? Obviously not. It's so impersonal, so objectified. I was doing my thing, you were doing your thing. How did it work out for you? Sex doesn't bring us closer. On the contrary. And eventually, if we don't like each other anymore, we will look down at each other. Oh, you were so cheap and you were such a slut and you're so... Whoa, whoa, whoa. I thought we were doing that mutually. And it was beautiful. We were making love. No, you weren't making love. So let's get real. Let's just get real. If you're being intimate, you're making a baby.
You're creating life.
Well, you may prevent it from happening, but the activity of intimacy between a man and a woman is necessary for making babies. That's not how you make love. Love is an emotion. It doesn't involve physical activity. And by the way, why do you call it making love? Why don't you just call it having sex?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's embarrassing to say we're just having sex. It's animalistic, it's disgusting, it's degrading, it's abusing each other. Oh, no, we're not just having sex. Come on.
But at the same time, people are still doing that. Their actions are speaking that way. But then when they speak it out loud, they cover it with a sugarcoating of making love.
Yes.
Because if they were just to be honest with themselves and speak it out loud and hear themselves talk it out from their thoughts and actions of, yeah, we had sex.
Yeah, they're just making sex.
What happened? Uh-huh.
So I don't understand this. If sex is embarrassing and degrading, why would you do it with someone you love? So calling it love just makes it worse. You mean you love the person you're doing this with? Why don't you do it with your enemy?
There's so many complications to it. It seems like people have wound it all up, and they don't know the rules.
It's totally confused. Now, intimacy, which involves the same body parts, but it is such a different experience that they have nothing else in common. See, after sex, you feel a little diminished. You feel a little wasted, used. After intimacy, you feel more innocent than before. Intimacy is the ability to get past all things and just merge with each other. And other is not a thing. He's not a thing, she's not a thing. If they merge, they become one being, not they performed some activity.
It's a reflection of, in a lot of different pathways, spiritually speaking, from a soul level, they all have this common denominator of oneness, achieving oneness, going back and merging with the creator. And it's kind of interesting to see that reflection play out here in the physical plane of oneness, of merging. Like that love really is a fabric of the universe, of creation. It's something sacred. And I would love to hear if you could rewrite the definition of love, what would that truly be?
Okay, so properly understood, oneness is awesomely holy and a challenge because our egos don't want to become one. I want to take my pleasure and run with it. I really can't be concerned with your pleasure. So the ego keeps us apart. We look for ways of getting past the ego so that we can become one. Love may help, or it may get in the way. If my love is selfish, then the more I love you, the further apart I am from you. Love can be the poison that kills the relationship. So, oneness is very important. Intimacy is a necessary part of life. If you've never been intimate, you haven't lived. Sex is not a necessary part of life. There is no genuine need in the human being for sex. Just like there is no real need for chocolate. Everybody likes it. Nobody needs it. You can never have enough chocolate because you never needed it in the first place. Or if it's not a need, you can't satisfy it. So something you can never have enough of is not a need.
It's an addiction.
That's an interesting way to look at it.
It's just an indulgence. And when have you indulged enough? So you can never have enough sex? Yeah, but that's because you don't really need it.
But what of intimacy?
It's like Chinese food.
Chinese.
Never have enough, right?
Well, the MSG in there or whatever makes it good. Makes you feel good.
Yeah, get a little
But
extra.
you know, you brought up an interesting point about if a man were to marry a woman just because she has wealth, she has money, right? And if she loses the money down the road, then guess what? He's probably gonna walk. So it becomes like here's the man, and then the woman, and then behind the woman's the money. This man wants the money that's behind her, and it's like she's in the way of him getting his prize, and that is the concept of like a lot of, if you look at people who are addicts, their family members are in the way of them getting their drug, but the family members coming out of a perspective of like, but you're our family, we love you, you know, and is there any way I can help you more and more? And then when their lips are moving, they're lying, the addict, just to get that money or that drug or that fixation. Especially with food, people have an addiction to food too much, and then they become obese, you know, they're unhealthy lifestyle. So it really is, looking at it, and my viewpoint so far from what I've have been impressed upon, is that you have to ask yourself, do I have that pattern or that cycle? Am I falling into that cycle of an addiction of just sex, hookup culture, right? And missing, and then when you have it, then you're like, you know, I didn't need it, but whatever. And then you're objectifying people then, because now you're objectifying people as well. And it's almost, I'm that's how I'm viewing it so far. Is that a fair assessment, Rabbi?
Yes. There is a distinction between an addiction and a mutual enjoyment. When a man has an addiction that the wife does not share, obviously that's not going to bring them together. But we get a little confused when we both want sex. Now it's bringing us together. No, it's not. It's bringing each of you to the sex. You're both committed to the sex. You're not committed to each other.
It's to an act rather than to the personhood.
In other words, something is bringing you together. That's a disaster. Because that thing, if it disappears, There is no relationship. So any relationship based on something is doomed. So if you both love pina colada and walks in the rain, if you remember that song.
Mm-hmm. I was about to say Warren Buffett. That's Jimmy Buffett. No, is it Jimmy Buffett or someone else?
I don't remember.
No,
Who's
I don't remember
saying that
anymore
song?
either.
I know that song. Yeah.
We're going to get married because we both love pina colada and walks in the rain? Or because we both love tennis? Or because we
Yeah.
both love religion? Or because we both love God? It's a disaster. Because you're marrying something and not each other.
That's so interesting because I hear, I'm thinking about audience members are listening to this, and if there's so many Christians that have this philosophy or viewpoint of relationships, and they say, well, if we put God in the center of a relationship, then everything will just fall into place somehow. Everything's just gonna be good because we're power. But then it's interesting. We're as a human beings, they fall into the trap of objectifying God or objectifying something, right? Because it becomes a thing. Is that what I'm also understanding? Because, well, if you share my viewpoint and I share your viewpoint on this important thing, then it just has to work.
So,
Would that be the parallel or a
yes,
comparison to the pina colada?
exactly right.
Okay.
This one guy says, I love everything about my wife. Everything. Her money, her looks, personality, her sense of humor, her family, everything. Everything about her. Which was strange because she wanted a divorce.
It's a thing. It's a thing that he likes. It's not the person again. That's the most.
Many things. He likes everything about her except her. So I asked him, do you love her? He said, I love everything about her. I said, no, not about her. Do you love her? He says, what does that mean? Not only is he not married to her, he doesn't even know what that means. Take away all things, nothing's left. What's left if you take away all things? The person.
The person, and the person being their soul, aka possibly the personality, what makes them them.
Who they are inside.
No, what makes them them, what makes you you, to me, you are you because you're not me. So am I marrying you because you're not me? Or am I only marrying those parts of you that are me?
Uh-huh.
So if I like everything about you, I'm marrying myself.
Right.
Everything we share in common, I love.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever makes you not me, I hate.
Okay.
Okay. So it's a little bit of like a reflection in a way.
Mm-hmm.
If you're marrying your own reflection, that's narcissism.
Recognizing each
like
other's differences and then appreciating each other's differences as well. So you recognize each other's differences and appreciate those differences in the other.
Love the fact that you're marrying someone who is not you.
Okay.
That's the part we never get comfortable with.
Have the age-old saying, opposites attract. Right? That's what they mean by that. I'm assuming opposites attract, someone who's not you.
That's why God came up with this weird plan that a man should marry a woman, because you'll never be the same. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. You'll never be the same.
Because they're the opposites.
Yeah.
They're the other half of the whole.
So
what are your thoughts on? Go
why
ahead.
why do people feel alone in a marriage, in a good marriage? The marriage is good because they love everything. But it's not really a marriage because they don't love each other. So
that's how people need to walk out of this, is they have to learn how to love each other and not the things that they bring to a partnership or relationship.
Yeah. So now
it's not the asset.
People say, I can't marry without knowing who I'm marrying. So we have to date for years. We have to live together, try it all out, make sure that everything works. And if everything works, you'll never be married to each other. You're so hung up on the things. Also, what are we supposed to do? Marry each other before we know everything? Yes. You're marrying each other. Things are incidental. Well, we're going to find out things about each other after we marry that come as a surprise. Yes. Things change. You're not the person I married? Yes, I am. Some things have changed, not me. Like I used to have money, now I don't have money.
Yeah.
That's not a change in me.
It's a change in the circumstance.
So here's the bottom line. Nothing about your wife is more important than your wife. What is that, rocket science? Nothing about your husband is more important than your husband. So when you marry...
So what advice can you provide to people? Yeah, that's it. When you marry what? I'm so sorry.
When you marry, you're marrying a someone, not a something. When you're being intimate, you're being with someone, not doing something.
Powerful. Very, very powerful. Very powerful words.
So one of the things that is destroying intimacy is this hang-up that we have on orgasm. It's not about you, it's about an orgasm. It's horrible. You're not enjoying being with each other. The only enjoyment is if you hit a home run and have an orgasm, or multiple. It has nothing to do with the person you're with. That's pornography. So the question, how was it, should never happen. You weren't doing it. That is so vulgar. Like, the expression doing it has become very common. Now it has spilled over. Are you doing him? That is so pornographic.
So I feel like there is a little bit more of a shift. I mean, I feel like in this conversation that we've had so far, we've talked a lot about, what is wrong with society and what is wrong with relationships. And we have touched on, you've mentioned it previously, that love is selfish.
Come on back. I don't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Now I hear you.
Okay. Sorry about that. Lizzie, she had an internet connection issue. But if Oxford Dictionary, Merriam-Webster Dictionary came to you and said, hey, we're erasing the previous description definition of love, and they want you to redefine it. How would you redefine that? And also, how would you redefine it in such a way that also encapsulates um, being a loving person in general? Because whenever I mean, I work in medicine, and one of my elders in medicine colleagues, long time ago, like 7 years ago, said to me, you know, if you ever wanted to reprioritize your life, or if you feel a little lost, too much focus at work, too much focus on anything, take a walk in a cemetery and read the tombstones of what it says there. The first word says, beloved, my beloved father, my beloved, you know, whatever. And that's how people will remember you by. So in the bigger picture of things, by say everyone followed your assignment verbatim, right? How would that look in an experiment, like in a micro and then macro experiment of by loving someone and not something, and starting at your roots at home, in turn will make this community a more harmonious place to live in and be a part of.
Okay, so the definition for the dictionary would be
Yes.
love means the desire to get closer to someone important.
Okay.
Love is a pursuit, not a state of being. It's not I'm in love. I'm loving. It's a verb. Loving means trying to get closer. Why are you trying to get closer? Because this person is important. Now look at the difference. The way things are in society today, if I love you, you are the most important person in my life. When I stop loving you, you're garbage. How is that decent? How is that normal? My love makes you important? That is so narcissistic. On the other hand, if you love those who are important, because it's your father, it's your mother, it's your wife, it's your husband, it's your child, it's your mentor, it's your best friend. So this person is important in my life, and I love having that person close to me. Now, what happens if you stop loving? The person is still important. So what do you say to a 12-year-old who has a brother and a dog? He loves his dog. He doesn't love his brother. So if his brother and his dog were both drowning, who would he save? His dog. Why? Because I love my dog. Loving your dog doesn't make him more important than your brother. You see how toxic love can be? Because of love, the unimportant become important. And because of a lack of love, your own brother is not important. This is such a distortion of reality. Love is the feeling you should have for those who are important. If you don't love them, they're still important. So if you don't love your mother and father, well, at least honor them. You don't love them, but you should honor them because they're still your parents.
That's right.
So love is not by itself important. It's the appropriate spirit in which to engage with those who are important. So, for example, we're commanded to love God. Love God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. See? Love makes the world go round. No, God makes the world go round, so you should love him. If you don't love him, he still makes the world go round. Your love doesn't change nature. Love means I want to get closer. Why do you want to get closer? Because this is important to me. God is your God, whether you love him or not. You might as well love him. He's not going to become any less important. And
So you
go ahead.
you mentioned, I'm so sorry, you mentioned a lot of different topics in the Joy of Intimacy, but then you also have another book. You actually have several, but the one that I'm thinking of is Creating a Better Life. Is that right?
Life that matters.
Creating a Life That Matters.
Right.
And I felt like a lot of that was it was really directed at the Jewish community, but I also feel like there's so much insight for so many other people, especially in the secular world. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Okay. One of the miracles of marriage is our ability to get past things and really merge with another human being. How do you get past things? I happen to be this kind of a person. I happen to have these appetites. I happen to have these needs. What am I supposed to do about it? Sacrifice all my needs? Compromise who I am? So there are actually people who say, yeah, marriage is a compromise. Marriage is all about sacrificing. That is very unappealing. And it's not true. You can sacrifice a half hour. You can compromise once in a while. You can't live a compromise. That's cruel and unusual punishment. And you certainly can't live a sacrifice. Marriage is your life and it's all about sacrifice? No, thank you. There should be no sacrifice. There should be no compromise. Like a man said to me, I was good to my wife for 8 years and I've got nothing to show for it. I was good to my wife for 8 years and I have nothing to show for it.
Am I correct in assuming that he was attached to some things because he doesn't have nothing to show for it? Because his word choice is interesting to me, of showing something for it. Is he coming from a place of how you described, of loving his wife as someone for who she is or was?
Obviously, it wasn't about her.
Uh-huh.
If you're good to your wife for 8 years, what should you have to show?
Oh,
Nothing. It's just who you are. You're a good person, and you're good to her for who she is, and you're just a good person in general. Those thoughts should not even cross his mind.
And if you were good to her for 8 years, she should be a happy woman. That's what you have to show. So if you make her happy by going out of your way, is that a compromise? You wanted to go to the Bahamas, and she wanted to go to the Mediterranean, and you compromised and sacrificed and took her to the Mediterranean. Now she's happy, but you're not. Wait a minute. Wasn't your entire intention to make her happy? Wasn't that the goal of your marriage? So if you achieved your goal, how is that a sacrifice? I sacrificed and made her happy. Oh, it's not your role to make her happy? marriage should not feel like a sacrifice or even a compromise. But then what do I do with my needs, my stuff? So let's broaden it to beyond marriage. What is life? What makes life worth living? So for thousands of years, we have lived life based on the fear of death. Everything human beings did for all of history is because we didn't want to die. You cultivate the earth, you produce a crop, you raise cows, chickens. Why? Because you don't want to die. Farmers get up very early in the morning because they got to get the fields done. It's late in the season. If you don't do it now, the winter is going to come and you're going to die. Well, that's a pretty good motivator. Not anymore. It doesn't motivate us anymore. You cannot say to young children today, do this or you're going to die, because they don't get the point. Go to school, work hard, get good grades, get into a good college, get a good job, make a lot of money so that you can pay the mortgage and you won't die. Huh? It doesn't make any sense. First of all, death is not that imminent. In the olden days, if you don't have a crop in the field, you're gonna die. Today, if I don't go to school, I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die. If I don't get a good report card, I'm gonna die. No, I won't. Well, yeah, you're gonna have to buy a house and you won't have the money and you're not gonna be able to pay the mortgage and they're gonna take your house away and then you're gonna be left out in the streets and you might die. Not really. Just go on welfare. Death is just not a realistic threat. But more than that, people are not so intimidated by death. Something has changed. And we got to talk about this. Two things that are very different today than they were 20 years ago. Number one, you can't threaten people. Because the worst threat is dying. People are not intimidated. You tell teenagers not to mess with drugs because it can kill you. And they don't see the point. What are you trying to say? It can kill you. Yeah, so. And we don't know what to say. But it'll kill you. Yeah, so. Well, you don't want to die. I don't know.
What do you think caused that change?
We're finally maturing.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is, nobody really wants sex anymore. Nobody's having sex anymore. The average couple have sex once a month. That's a disaster. National disaster. That's how we become extinct. Sex is boring, burdensome, and distasteful. And it's not going to help by calling it making love.
So relabeling is not going to help. We got to get to the root of it.
So people become desperate. If I'm not turned on by sex, what's wrong with me? Why do I need Viagra? Well, maybe I'm really not heterosexual. Maybe I'm homosexual. Well, I tried that, and that doesn't turn me on anymore either. Now what's wrong with me? Oh, maybe I'm the wrong gender. Yeah. And what are you going to do after that? If you change your gender, you'll never have sex again. Anyway.
Like Lizzie
Yeah.
brought up a good point. Relabeling is not going to change anything either. And and I'm also like thinking about different societies too, like different cultures, like monks, monks, if they are disciplined and they actually like what they're doing up in Nepal area, or even the Jesuits who take the vows of chastity, obedience, and poverty. I'm thinking about all these different things, and well, if they don't feel like having sex anymore as they age or whatever happens, even young people have that issue too as well. They're like, whatever, I'm going to continue doing what I committed to, right? It's interesting to look at different cultures and societies and seeing their perspectives too, because how would they handle it? And then why do we have this pressure? And where is this pressure coming from? It's really just coming from the the part of the world we're living in, the part of the subculture we're in, society as a whole, the country, how the trends shift and change all the time. And what's wrong with just being? Why do a lot of people chase different labels, right? To define them as this, and if I don't like this, then something's wrong with me because I have to fit into something.
Well, you can't fool Mother Nature. You can give yourself all sorts of pronouns and titles. You can't fool Mother Nature. So whatever our nature demands, we either do it, live up to it, or we make ourselves sick. A person who loses all interest in sex is not a healthy human being anymore. This is not what God wants. In fact, by nature, every human being is multisexual. Multisexual means I can enjoy sex with anything that feels good. So am I heterosexual or homosexual? Whatever. I can also have sex by myself or with an animal or with a toy, with anything. Whatever feels good, I'm going to enjoy.
Yeah.
So it makes no sense for a person to say, I think I'm bisexual. Really? You're such a talented guy. Everyone is bisexual. The only definition for homosexual is I cannot be intimate with a woman.
Hmm.
The enjoyment of being intimate with a man, anybody can do that. By nature, we are sexual, and only our imagination limits us. So if a person says, "Oh, I love sex with a woman, I love sex with a man, I love sex with a goat," that's a healthy human being.
Okay. I mean, so like that's an interesting thought there.
It is.
I feel like in society today, we have a lot of people that prioritize, again, we talk about this a little bit before, the personal liberty aspect. Austin and I were talking a little bit about, a lot of people, they're looking for freedom. They're always finding ways to not only find themselves, but to find the freedom that works for them. You know what I mean? But with freedom, you also have to have boundaries, because if you're totally 100% free, anything is possible, anything can happen, and that includes the bad things. That includes toxic relationships, strife, difficult things happening to you and befalling you. one of the most recent things that I watched on another podcast, they were interviewing a divorce attorney, and he goes, "Nobody intends to meet me or end up in my office." And he says, and a lot of people come in there because they're contesting prenups or they're considering prenups. But the way he described prenuptial agreements was they are boundaries. They are the set of rules by which this marriage, by which this couple is going into this union, or as you would call it, a reunion. And I find that, when you have, spoken in other shows before, in some of your books and some of your context, you talk a lot about the boundaries too. We opened the show talking about the notion of rules. What are the rules that people should be following?
Mm.
10 Commandments.
That's a perfect one. I mean, like,
good.
that's true. That's great.
The only reason we promote heterosexual relationships is because for some reason that pleases God more than the others. But as far as we're concerned, makes no difference. As long as I can have sex, I'm not particular. So God says, if you're not so particular, do it my way. My way is heterosexual. Why? I don't know. It's the same like with the laws of kosher. God tells the Jewish people, eat only the beef, not the pork. We can enjoy pork, we can enjoy beef. It's all the same to me. God says, if it's all the same to you, can you please stick to the beef and not the pork? I said, fine, I don't care. But imagine a person who says, beef? I can't eat beef. I can't eat beef. That's disgusting. The only meat I can eat is pork. Well, go to a doctor. What does that mean? You can't enjoy beef? So the problem with sexual identity is not what you enjoy, it's what you can't enjoy. If you cannot be intimate with a man, then you're a lesbian. If you can be intimate with a man and you also enjoy being intimate with a woman, that's just normal. Now ask God, do you have a preference? Because to me, it's all the same. God says, yeah, I prefer heterosexual. Okay. It's good. But imagine saying, what, with a man? Oh, no, I can't do that with a man. Well, if you can't, maybe you need treatment. Because you should be able to enjoy every kind of sex. You should have freedom of choice. So telling people, oh, you're attracted to the same gender? That's disgusting. No, it's not. And it's certainly not a sickness. Not being attracted, that's a problem. So here's really, going back to your question about the other book, the other real message in life is this. I didn't ask to be born. Nobody asks to be born. And the reason we don't ask to be born is because we don't need to. Would there be anything wrong with the world or with, I don't know, with the universe if I was never born? I know for a fact that people who were never born don't complain.
We're not here to complain. So yeah, I get you.
So if I don't ask to be born because I don't need to be born, and yet I am born shouldn't the biggest question be why? I don't need it. Not for me. Then why am I here? I mean, you can't say, well, because your parents gave birth to you. They didn't ask to be born either. Why are we here? Why life? Why life? And it's such a good question.
It is a very good question.
And children are asking it now, not big
That's good.
philosophers. Every child says, I didn't ask to be born. Why'd you have me? And it's such a good question. Why are we here? It turns out, for all of history, we've been barking up the wrong tree. We've been trying desperately to satisfy our needs. And that is so disturbed because I don't have any needs. Try this again. All of life means getting what you need. But that is so frustrating because I don't need anything. So if one more
You need something.
if one more salesman comes to my door to tell me how to satisfy my needs, I'm going to get violent.
Well, isn't that the reality of the world we live in?
No.
Where everything is, they're selling you something. You go out on the street and there's billboards. It's at least in the Western world, right?
Yeah, in this part of the globe.
They're catering to your needs, but you don't have any needs.
Mm-hmm.
Look, if I don't need to be born, then I certainly don't need to eat. If I don't need to be born, I certainly don't need a car. I say, oh, you need a car because without it, you'll die. Excuse me, that's not a threat. I don't need to be born. I don't need to be alive. Yeah, but you need a car. Come on, don't be ridiculous.
You really don't need a car. You're right. If you look at the indigenous tribes that are still, I'm just thankful and thank God that they're maintaining who they are before they were discovered, so to speak, in air quotes, by the Western European countries.
They have fewer needs.
They have fewer needs. They need anything, they just go a few steps over here. They go get the fruit over there. They need herbal medicine. They got it growing over there, and I don't think they even really have an economy, so to speak, anything tangible to with money. They just all live together in that tribe, and they just are in harmony with nature.
Right. So their needs are fewer and more basic.
Mm-hmm.
Problem is, even those needs are unnecessary.
Yep.
So here's my question. Are we speaking about the need of the spirit? Are we speaking more about the need to stay? Okay, again, we kind of touched on this earlier, but this need to stay alive,
We don't need to stay alive.
Eventually everyone will die, right? But there is a human, yes, we're all going, life is a temporary experience, we're all on that track. But for the interim, people that wish to or would like to, prefer to continue being in this incarnation of who we are, there is a need to satiate with water.
Yes.
To consume food, sustenance. And I believe you've talked about this previously, the need for intimacy. People do crave that. Do you consider intimacy a need, or do you think that it's not a need?
It's as much a need as food.
Okay.
But I don't need food.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you say, if I enjoy being alive and I want to continue it, I have to eat. That doesn't make it a need. It's an option.
Is it a fair assessment when you say I don't need it? Are you speaking from the soul level? Because our soul doesn't need anything in this physical world to survive, to live. It's infinite. it is what it is. Just to answer questions from other perspectives. That's why I'm asking that question. Is that what you mean by having us reflect on? Yeah, you know, it's a necessity to have food, but you don't need it. Or are you saying, or coming from the viewpoint of don't get, do stuff in moderation. Don't be too much excessive on one end of the spectrum versus the other. Just be in the middle.
Don't live under the delusion that you have needs and they'll keep you up at night and cause you anxiety. So you need to take anti-anxiety pills. And if that doesn't work, you'll have to take anti-depression pills. And what are you depressed about? Because you can't get your needs satisfied. You don't have needs.
You have wants and cravings and wishes. Is that what we're thinking? Okay. So this is an interesting component. I come from, in America, there's a large, I guess, puritanical influence of the population. You talk a little bit about the shame that comes from people talking about sex. There is a shame in, people that have divorced. There's a variety of different things in which people, they shirk from things, or they consider it like there's an ill impression of some ideologies.
Yeah.
They talk a lot about the need for God. That is the only need that I've really heard impressed from that faction. You know what I mean?
And why do you need God?
Because God is I guess this is from a perspective of like what I have been told from a variety of different people. Some of the things, because of some of the input that I've gotten, what I have been led to believe, we need God because God is the creator. There is no existence, there is no experience, there is no soul reality that we currently exist in without God.
And what would be the tragedy if we didn't exist?
There would be no tragedy because we wouldn't exist.
That's right.
Yeah.
So we need God only because we think we need to exist.
Okay.
But when we realize we don't need to exist, then I don't need God either.
So here's the thing. We do exist, as far as we know. We could be in the matrix. But we do exist.
Yeah.
And there are, I believe, so many people across the world that they do have, physical needs to stay alive. They want to stay alive. And they're having difficulty doing so.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so what is your advice to, to what you're saying? Is there a temperance in what you're saying?
I mean, I don't mean to sound cruel, but if it's so difficult for you to live, so don't. Stop suffering.
That is an interesting perspective. I've never heard anyone say that.
Just making.
And it's not a cruel. It's not. I don't feel like you're coming from a cruel place.
I don't think it's cruel.
You're challenging people's notions and what they, and their, inner mind, the monkey brain that keeps on talking and, thinking a certain way.
Okay. So
asking people to be more flexible with thought.
So let's follow the logic.
Okay.
I don't ask to be born because I don't need to be born. So don't tell me that I need to eat. No, I don't. But you can't exist without eating. That's true. That doesn't make it my need. Makes it my handicap. Sometimes I don't want to eat. I'm doing things. I'm busy. Oh, no, you got to stop and eat. You can be cramming for a really important test, but you got to go to sleep. No, I need to stay up and finish this. Got to go to sleep. Who did this to me? And to say, no, this is my need. Don't be ridiculous. I need to stay up and I can't. That's my need. I need to finish the project, but I haven't eaten in a few hours, so I can't function anymore. That's my need. If I designed myself, I would make myself dependent on grass or broccoli.
Is that the handicap there? The broccoli?
If I designed myself, I would need to sleep half my life away. Come on, what kind of plan is this? It's not my plan, not my need. I need nothing. I need nothing. And therefore, the question of, so why am I here, is such a good question.
Yeah.
I mean, religion says God created you, and now you have to pray to him and get down on your knees and beg him to give you food and to give you health and to protect you and to save you. What a nasty plan. Then why'd you create me in the first place?
To learn to trust, I guess. I would assume it's just learn to trust him, because if following that logic, if God created you and put you here, he created the universes, plural, right? And he created this physical flesh for everyone from all races, color, nations, creeds. Of course he'll supply everything for you. So why are we getting in our own way of I need? Just trust, it'll come. Meaning balancing that, I guess, the harmonious relationship of trusting the infinity symbol of God and then us, and it will come. The sparrows, the birds, they get their food. I don't think they even have that much thoughts how we do as humans of, well, what about tomorrow? What about next week? What about this? What about the time when I didn't have anything? They just wake up and eat.
So I'm created to trust God.
I think that in the terms of the physical flesh speaking, we have to all learn to trust God. It's for me, I'm still learning to trust. It's a journey for me.
But
it may not be the sole purpose. It may not be the sole purpose. So the reason
cannot be. Now that I'm alive, I'm going to have to trust him. But thank you very much. But I'd rather not be alive.
Do you think that being a rabbi, do you think that, I'm so sorry, Rabbi Friedman, do you think that being a rabbi is kind of akin to being a philosopher?
Maybe, but much more important.
I believe so.
So let me get to the punchline. If I don't need to be born, and yet I am born, what's my logical conclusion? I'm not born because I need to be, so I must have been born because someone else needs me to be. I'm not the product of my need, so I must be the product of
the creator's need.
Exactly.
So the idea is that the creator needs us.
Yes.
Do you think it's the idea that, so this is an interesting perspective. Do you think it's from a philosophical standpoint, one of the things that I think about a lot is, with everything that we do in this earth, everything that we try to achieve with our lives, our very short lives, some of us only live a day, some of us live 100 years, and then some change. Sometimes people don't feel, especially as you get older, you feel like you're a burden. You feel like you're not living for yourself, you're not living for other people. The creator needs us as an extension of himself or herself or itself, in this theory that we're going down. Do you feel like at some point, that is the reason that we come in short life cycles? Do you know what I mean? Like we come in 100 years or a day, we're just serving a purpose on behalf of the creator because the creator needs us to live that life, to live as an extension of itself.
Lizzie, I'm sorry to interrupt, but are you going into like the reunion aspect of like merging into oneness? So it needs us because it has like I miss you feeling, like I miss being with you.
Or maybe if it has needs, maybe it's the missing component of it. It's the reunion component, But
See,
if we're all coming in at different life, at different life, times, different eras, different ages, we all live different functions, some just hours, some, good long time.
all of it
Is that feeding into that?
yes. All of it serves God's needs. But because God needs, we can't refer to God as an it. That's pornography.
So what would you do? So you would say God is a he?
Or
God is a who.
persons. Who?
It's the entity,
Okay.
a them, a he, a they. Or would we just say God?
Just God who wants
Are we good?
relationship. So listen to this. I got to wrap it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've had it backwards for all of history. We always had this assumption that we are the very needy ones, the dependent ones, the disadvantaged ones, the feeble, the fragile. And we should get down on our knees and beg God to be good to us, which is a horrible picture. On the other hand, God needs nothing. He's perfect. He sits in heaven watching us suffer. It's a horrible picture. The whole thing is horrible. God, who created the whole universe, needs nothing. I, who created nothing, have all sorts of needs. This is perverted thinking.
Mm.
Let's get it straight. I need nothing. I don't exist for my needs. Because if you're asking me for my needs, do me a favor and don't create me. On the other hand, a God who creates an entire universe needs nothing. How does that make any sense? So the bottom line is this. I can connect to you and become one with you beyond all needs because I have no needs. Not I'm sacrificing, not I'm compromising. I don't have needs.
Mm.
I'm hoping you have a need that I can take care of because that would give me a reason to live. Bottom line is, human beings are not needy. Human beings are needed.
Wow.
Hey. Wow.
I'm not needy. I am necessary.
Thank you, Rabbi Manis Friedman. And where can people find your books or find you?
The books are on, what is it called again?
Amazon, Kindle.
Right. Amazon.
There's so many.
Yeah. Also, you can go to itsgoodtoknow.org.
Okay.
And your Instagram handle?
Yeah. It's goodtoknow.org.
It's goodtoknow.org, and we can also find you on Instagram. Just type in Manis Friedman, Rabbi Manis Friedman, and
YouTube.
find the YouTube.
Yeah, you have a pretty big sphere of YouTube videos, which are excellent to watch.
Lot of videos on every subject that matters.
If you had one idea or one thought that you wish the whole world knew, what would that be?
My life is not for me.
Thank you.
Such a perfect world. If everyone agreed, my life is not for me.
My life is not for me. We have such a perfect world. What was the last part?
If I would wake up in the morning and say, what can I do for you?
What can I do for you?
What can I do for my creator? Because it's not about me. So first of all, I would never get anxious. If I have no needs, what am I anxious about? Secondly, my life is so much more necessary because I am needed by the Creator.
Mm.
That ties into what the former president, was it Kennedy, said, ask not what you can do for, or ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country.
Yeah.
Going back into that
It kind
common
of has
denominator.
that
Yes.
same feeling.
It is the
Yes.
it is the most popular and best remembered phrase of any inaugural speech.
Yeah.
Of our lifetime.
Rabbi Manis
Maybe
Friedman,
Lincoln is more
everyone.
memorable.
Thank you again
Thank
so
you
much
so
for
much.
joining us.
Thank you for making the world a little bit better.